What's up, everyone? This is Waylanator69420, and this is going to be my 2012 NFL Draft First Round Winners and Losers video. This is going to be fairly simple. I'm just going to go over the teams I thought did really well at the draft, teams I think didn't do so hot, and who they picked, why I don't think it was good or why I think it was very good. We're going to start on the positive side with the winners, and the number one winner to me was the Jacksonville Jaguars, selecting Justin Blackmon, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State, with the 5th overall selection after trading up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I really like Justin Blackmon. I think he has the ability to be a top 5 wide receiver in the National Football League. And if I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I'm looking at this like, okay, now it's time for Blaine Gabbert to show up. Now we've got you a number 1 receiver. You've got a very good tight end. Now it's time to start showing us something. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the skill positions are pretty good. With now Justin Blackmon, with Mercedes Lewis, and then obviously the league's leading rusher last year, Maurice Jones-Drew. And Justin Blackmon, I think, will step in and have an immediate impact, and we'll see if Blaine Gabbert can get it done. Another team I thought was a big winner was the Cleveland Browns. They swapped first-round selections with the Minnesota Vikings this year to select Trent Richardson, running back out of Alabama, with the 3rd overall pick instead of the 4th overall pick. And Trent Richardson is an absolute beast. We all know this. I think Trent Richardson is going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. He's going to be an all-pro running back, very Adrian Peterson-esque. I don't know if he's going to be that good, but he's going to be a damn good running back, no doubt about that. And then the Browns, with the 22nd overall pick, selected Brandon Weeden, quarterback out of Oklahoma State. I'm very high on Brandon Weeden. I thought he'd be a second-round pick only because he's 28, going to be 29 years old. And personally, I think if you can get a decade of really good quarterback play out of Brandon Weeden, then you're going to be set. And now the Cleveland Browns are starting to look like they've got some pieces, especially on that offense, that can start to do something. Now, the Browns actually had a top 10 defense in 2011, if you remember. But now they need an offense to be able to complement that, and it looks like they're starting to go in that direction, which is very good if you're a Browns fan. Another big winner for me was the Philadelphia Eagles, trading up from number 15 to number 12 overall to select Fletcher Cox, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Now, Fletcher Cox is by far, in my opinion, the best interior defensive lineman in this draft. I mean, the guy produced at Mississippi State and had the workout numbers to prove why, unlike Dontari out of Memphis, who had all the workout numbers you could want, but he didn't produce. And Dontari actually goes the pick before Fletcher Cox, which was an absolute shock to me. And the Eagles, I think, they're starting to look again like a Super Bowl contender. Vince Young called them the Dream Team last year, and that was a nightmare. This year, they may actually have Dream Team kind of accolades, with now not only having the 2 corners that you got last year, but then also now getting DeMeco Ryans from the Texans and drafting Fletcher Cox. The defense is starting to look pretty damn good there in Philadelphia, no doubt about it. And another big winner, in my opinion, we had 2 more, 23 and 24 overall, the Detroit Lions and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they got the 2 biggest steals of this draft in the first round, with the Detroit Lions selecting Riley Reiff, offensive tackle out of Iowa, and the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting David DeCastro, offensive guard out of Stanford. I think both of these picks were just best player on the board at the time picks. Now, I believe I mocked Stephon Gilmore of South Carolina to go to the Detroit Lions, and he ended up going to the Buffalo Bills at number 10 overall. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know for sure, were thinking best player available because they really could have used Dante Hightower, and they passed on him. But these are still two absolute steals. Riley Reif, I mocked going number 8 overall to the Miami Dolphins. And David DeCastro, I mocked going number 11 overall to the Kansas City Chiefs. And to see them fall to 23 and 24 respectively is mind-boggling to me. But the Lions and Steelers will be better off for these selections, I believe. I've got one more winner, and I thought that was the Houston Texans at number 26 overall, selecting Whitney Mercilus, defensive end out of Illinois. Whitney Mercilus led Division I last year in sacks, and he led Division I last year in forced fumbles. This is a guy that can flat out get after the quarterback and isn't as much of a liability as a run stopper as, say, a Bruce Irvin out of West Virginia, who we'll get into in a minute. Whitney Mercilus, I think, is going to be a very good addition to the Houston Texans. He's going to be, for them, what they wanted Mario Williams to be before he was injured. And now we get to the losers. The losers, in my opinion, start with the Miami Dolphins. In case you can't tell, I'll hold up the jersey a little bit. Yeah, I am a Miami Dolphins fan, and I have been for a very, very long time. And I despise everything about this number 8 overall selection of Ryan Tannehill, quarterback out of Texas A&M. I believe Ryan Tannehill is a second or third round talent. If the Dolphins had gotten him in the second round, I would not complain, because I think that's where he deserves to be. He is not the 8th best player in this draft. No chance. Not a chance in hell is he the 8th best player in this draft. And I'm sorry, I just don't think the Miami Dolphins made a good choice here. I know the physical attributes of Ryan Tannehill are all very, very good, and I'm not going to debate that. I just don't think he has it up here enough to be able to win in the National Football League. Ryan Tannehill has to be the next Dan Marino if the Miami Dolphins are going to be able to justify this selection to fans like me 10 years from now. This guy has to be a Pro Bowler, he has to be damn near a Hall of Famer to be able to pull this off and make it worth it. And I don't see it. I really don't. While that pick did not shock me, one pick really did shock me. And that is the the Seattle Seahawks at number 15 overall, after a trade I mentioned a minute ago with the Philadelphia Eagles, to select Bruce Irvin, defensive end out of West Virginia. Bruce Irvin is a pass rusher. That's it. If they had a position in the NFL that just said pass rusher, that would be Bruce Irvin. The guy does not play well against the run at all. And at this point, at number 15 overall, you still have Melvin Ingram, Quentin Coples, Whitney Mercilus, Nick Perry, etc., still on the board. Bruce Irvin is the first defensive lineman to go. Or the first defensive end, to go. And why? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, while the Seahawks do need a pass rusher, this just was not a smart pick at all, especially with all those guys I just mentioned still on the board who can all rush the passer and are all better in run coverage and stopping the run, which you're going to need in that division playing against Frank Gore. Now, I realize you still got to be able to rush the passer. And we'll see if Bruce Irvin works out, but I think chances are better that he will be a bust at number 15 overall. Another team I thought reached, although I don't think this is as big of a reach, and it doesn't completely shock me, was the San Francisco 49ers at number 30 overall, selecting A.J. Jenkins, wide receiver out of Illinois. The only reason this really surprises me is because of the names of better wide receivers still on the board at number 30 overall, namely Stephen Hill out of Georgia Tech and Alshon Jeffrey out of South Carolina. I think either one of those guys would have been a better fit for the San Francisco 49ers. And now, while they can justify the speed of A.J. Jenkins and how fast he really is, to me, he reminds me a lot of Ted Ginn Jr. And Ted Ginn Jr., if you have to go by first rounders, he's a bust. Even though he's played decent since he went to the 49ers, he's still a bust in terms of first round selections. And A.J. Jenkins has a lot of Ted Ginn Jr. in him, at least to me. One more team I thought reached, and this was a big reach, was the New York Giants at number 32 overall, selecting David Wilson, running back out of Virginia Tech. Now, I understand the need for a running back with the New York Giants, with Brandon Jacobs now in San Francisco. But I don't think, it was your biggest need. You do still have Ahmad Bradshaw there, and you can get a compliment to him in the second or third round that'll be able to play for you. I think their biggest need is actually on the offensive line, and with Jonathan Martin of Stanford and Mike Adams of Ohio State still on the board, I don't see why the Giants did not go after one of these two offensive tackles who could help protect Eli Manning. But, I mean, David Wilson is not a guy I'm all that high on. I don't think he'll translate to a very good NFL running back. I really don't. He's got some durability issues. There's just too many question marks with David Wilson for me to make him a first-round pick, albeit the last pick in the first round. Now, those are my winners and losers of the 2012 NFL Draft, the first round. I will not be able to watch rounds 2 and 3 today or rounds 4 through 7 tomorrow, but I will do some reading on them and formulate my opinions, and most likely tomorrow you will get a second and third round recap, winners and losers, and on Sunday you will probably get an overall winners and losers of the entire 2012 NFL Draft from me. Well, this is Waylanator69420 signing off. You stay classy, bitches.